into the fascinating world of Immanuel Kant and his critical philosophy.
Kant is one of the most influential philosophers in Western thought, and his work has shaped our understanding of knowledge, ethics, and aesthetics. In this blog, we explore his three major critiques. First, the critique of pure reason, which examines how we come to know the world. Second, the critique of practical reason, where he lays out his moral philosophy. And last, the critique of judgment, which delves into beauty and purpose. Immanuel Kant was a German philosopher from Königsberg, widely regarded as one of the most influential thinkers in Western philosophy. He is best known for his work in epistemology, metaphysics, ethics, and aesthetics. His critical philosophy, particularly his critique series, revolutionized how we understand human knowledge, morality, and existence. Kant was born on April 22, 1724, into a modest family in Königsberg, Prussia. His father was a harness maker, and his mother, though uneducated, was devotedly religious, which influenced Kant's early education. Kant attended the University of Königsberg, where he studied philosophy, mathematics, and the natural sciences. After graduation, he worked as a tutor and later became a professor at the same university, teaching a wide range of subjects, including logic, metaphysics, and ethics. Kant's most famous contributions lie in his critical philosophy, outlined in three major works. First, Critique of Pure Reason in year 1781. This work addresses how we come to know the world. Kant argued that human perception is shaped by both sensory input and the mind's intrinsic structures, including space, time, and categories. He proposed the idea of transcendental idealism, stating that we can never know things in themselves, but only their appearances. Second, Critique of Practical Reason in year 1788. In this second critique, Kant formulated his moral philosophy, arguing that morality is grounded in reason, not in empirical experience. He introduced the categorical imperative, a principle that demands actions should only be undertaken if they can be universally applied as a law. And last, Critique of Judgement in year 1790. Kant explored aesthetics and teleology in this final major work, examining the nature of beauty, art, and the purpose of natural organisms. Kant's ethical theory, known as deontological ethics, asserts that moral actions are not judged by their consequences but by their adherence to duty. The categorical imperative is central to this view, dictating that one should act only according to maxims that can be universally applied. Kant's work deeply influenced subsequent philosophy, laying the groundwork for both German idealism and modern philosophy. His ideas impacted later thinkers like Hegel and Nietzsche, as well as contemporary fields such as analytic philosophy and existentialism. Kant passed away on February 12, 1804, in Königsberg, where he had spent his entire life. His rigorous work on reason, morality, and aesthetics continues to be studied and debated, marking him as one of the towering figures in Western intellectual history. Immanuel Kant's critical philosophy revolves around a comprehensive examination of human reason, its limits, and how it shapes our understanding of the world. His major works, The Critique of Pure Reason, Critique of Practical Reason, and Critique of Judgement, explore different dimensions of human thought, epistemology, ethics, and aesthetics. Each work is essential to understanding Kant's revolutionary ideas. Critique of Pure Reason in year 1781 focuses on epistemology and metaphysics. This work tackles the fundamental question of how humans acquire knowledge and the limits of what we can know. Kant aimed to resolve the conflict between empiricism, which holds that all knowledge comes from sensory experience, and rationalism, which argues that knowledge is derived from reason alone. Key concepts of Critique of Pure Reason are transcendental idealism, a priori versus a posteriori knowledge, synthetic a priori judgments, and the Copernican revolution in philosophy. In transcendental idealism, Kant argues that human experience is shaped by the mind. We cannot know things in themselves, but only the phenomena or how things appear to us through the filters of our mind's structures, namely space and time. These are not properties of the external world, but of the mind's way of organizing sensory input. In priori versus a posteriori knowledge, Kant distinguishes between a priori knowledge, which is independent of experience like mathematics, and a posteriori knowledge, which is derived from experience. He argues that some knowledge, including the principle of space, time, and causality, is both a priori and necessary for experience to be possible. Synthetic a priori judgments. These are judgments that are both necessarily true and informative, unlike analytic judgments, which are tautological. Kant believes that much of our fundamental knowledge, like the laws of physics, comes from synthetic a priori judgments. The Copernican revolution in philosophy. Kant's approach flips the traditional view, proposing that instead of assuming that our knowledge conforms to objects, we must assume that objects conform to our mind's structures. This shift emphasizes that human understanding plays an active role in shaping our experience of reality. Critique of Practical Reason in year 1788 focuses on ethics and morality. In this second critique, Kant addresses questions about moral philosophy. He argues that morality is not based on contingent factors like emotions or desires, but rather on the pure reason that all rational beings share. Key concepts of Critique of Practical Reason are the categorical imperative, autonomy and freedom, moral law as a fact of reason, and the good will. The categorical imperative. Kant's central moral principle, the categorical imperative, states that one should act according to maxims that could be universally applied. In other words, moral actions must be applicable universally and respect the dignity and rationality of others. For example, one version of the categorical imperative is act only according to that maxim, whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Autonomy and freedom. Kant argues that to act morally is to act autonomously, following one's rational will rather than being driven by external influences or desires. Autonomy for Kant is the highest form of freedom because it is guided by rational moral law. Moral law as a fact of reason. Kant asserts that we are aware of moral law through our reason, which can dictate what we ought to do. This awareness of the moral law is itself evidence that humans are free, since moral obligation implies the ability to choose otherwise. The good will. Kant emphasizes that the good will is the only thing that is good without qualification. Even if good actions fail to achieve their intended effects, they are morally praiseworthy as long as they were motivated by duty and respect for moral law. Critique of Judgement in year 1790, which focuses on aesthetics and teleology. The third critique explores two major areas. First, aesthetic judgments and teleological judgments. Kant's goal in this critique is to bridge the gap between the domains of nature and freedom, explored in his first two critiques. Key concepts of critique of judgment are aesthetic judgment, the sublime, and teleological judgment. In aesthetic judgment, Kant argues that aesthetic judgments, such as declaring something beautiful, are subjective yet universal. Beauty for Kant does not exist in objects themselves, but arises from the harmonious interplay between our faculties of imagination and understanding. Although beauty is experienced individually, we make judgments of beauty as if they should apply universally. The sublime. Kant also distinguishes between the beautiful and the sublime. The sublime is associated with awe and fear of vastness or power, like a towering mountain or a stormy sea, that seems beyond human comprehension, yet it also elevates us because it reminds us of our rational capacities to grasp this vast phenomena. Teleological judgment. In this part of the critique, Kant explores the idea of purpose in nature, particularly in living organisms. He suggests that while we may not know the ultimate purpose of nature, we are inclined to view organisms as if they were designed with a purpose, even though science may not affirm this view. Kant thus introduces a regulative use of teleological principles, ideas that help guide our thinking without being definitive claims about the external world. In my understanding, Immanuel Kant's critical philosophy is centered on the idea that human reason has limits, and understanding those limits is essential for comprehending reality, morality, and aesthetics. Through his three major works, Critique of Pure Reason, Critique of Practical Reason, and Critique of Judgment, Kant explores different aspects of human thought, shaping how we approach knowledge, ethics, and beauty. In the Critique of Pure Reason, Kant examines how we come to know the world. He argues that our experience is not a direct reflection of reality, but is shaped by the mind's structures like space and time. This means that we cannot know things as they are in themselves, only as they appear to us. For me, this highlights that human cognition is not passive, but actively constructs our experience of reality. We have to accept that there are limits to what we can know because our mind plays a crucial role in shaping what we perceive. In the Critique of Practical Reason, Kant focuses on ethics and argues that moral principles come from reason, not from experience or consequences. He believes that true moral actions are based on universal principles. This is the categorical imperative, which tells us to act in ways that could be made into universal laws. I understand Kant's moral philosophy as emphasizing duty and rationality. Morality for him is about following moral laws out of respect for those laws rather than being driven by personal gain or emotions. In the Critique of Judgment, Kant turns to aesthetics and how we make judgments about beauty and purpose in nature. He suggests that when we find something beautiful, it's not because it serves a function or follows strict rules, but because it creates a sense of harmony between our imagination and understanding. I find this interesting because it means that beauty, while subjective, is something we expect others to agree on. Kant also explores the idea of purpose in nature, suggesting that we often interpret natural phenomena as having a purpose, even though this might not reflect objective reality. Overall, I see Kant's critical philosophy as a way of defining the boundaries of human thought. He shows that while reason is powerful, it has limits, and understanding those limits is key to making sense of knowledge, ethics, and beauty. Kant's philosophy is about how human reason shapes our world, but also about recognizing that we cannot know everything. His work challenges us to think about the role of the mind in constructing our experience of reality, morality, and aesthetics. Here are three notable quotes from each of Immanuel Kant's critics that capture the essence of his critical philosophy. First, critique of pure reason. Thoughts without content are empty, intuitions without concepts are blind. This quote reflects Kant's view that knowledge comes from the combination of both sensory experience and the mind's concepts. Without either, understanding the world would be impossible. Second, critique of practical reason. Two things fill the mind with ever new and increasing admiration and awe. The oftener and the more steadily we reflect on them, the starry heavens above me and the moral law within me. And last, critique of judgment. The beautiful is that which pleases universally without a concept. This captures Kant's idea that beauty, while subjective, holds a universal appeal even though it is not based on specific concepts or rules. These quotes encapsulates Kant's efforts to understand the limits and potential of human reason in different areas of life, knowledge, morality, and aesthetics.